Hello and welcome back to How to Build a Model Spaceship Out of Recyclable Junk. Hi, my name is Steve Doak and I'm your host for this video segment. And I'd like to point out that this is in conjunction with MildaCon, the virtual Comic Con that's put on by myself and my colleagues from RAF Mildenhall. That's in Suffolk in England. And as I said before, if you're joining us from far, far away, welcome. It's great to have you with us. Now, a couple of questions came up about some information in the first segment of how to build a model spaceship out of recyclable junk. And I'd like to mention the safety goggles. Now, in the first segment, I put on my steampunk goggles, and wouldn't you know, they steamed up immediately, and I couldn't see what I was doing. So, a much more serious set of safety goggles are these things. They fit over your glasses or over your magnifier lenses, and they've got lots of little holes along the top and the sides, and that helps to keep the goggles from steaming up, although they will steam up eventually, and frankly they're not very comfortable. But when you're working with little parts and cutting things, if there's any possibility that a small piece of something or other is going to fly up into your face, you need to make sure that it doesn't fly into your eyes, because that could be pretty awful. Another question that came up was my mention of a razor saw. And I think a lot of people had the impression that what I was talking about was a motorized rotary saw, and those are useful. In fact, I've got something called a Dremel tool, which is really good at cutting things, but sometimes the Dremel or a similar brand will cut so fast that you may destroy the thing that you're actually trying to cut apart. So I prefer a hand tool like this, and this is sometimes called a razor saw or a jeweler's saw, and I know it's impossible to see in the video, but it's got very, very fine teeth, and you can't really cut yourself on this, although if you really take an effort, you could harm your skin. But this is very good for cutting small parts. It's good for plastic, it's good for wood, occasionally small bits of metal, although you'll discover that the teeth wear down very, very quickly if you saw metal. So that's a jeweler's saw, and that's my preference over a rotary electric saw. And the other tool that you're going to get a lot of use out of is a razor knife. I just call these X-Acto knives, but that's a brand name. You can get these at any hobby shop. You can get them online. They are extremely sharp. In fact, they are razor sharp. And that means that kids, if you're going to be building a model out of recyclable junk and you need to do some cutting, it's the adults that should be using this to cut things apart. And also, adults should be using this tool as well. The other important thing that came up in the first segment was I referred to this as an ion fighter. It's more accurately referred to as a TIE fighter, so sorry about that, Star Wars fans. At this point, I'd like to mention that this video is sponsored by Beck Row Auto Dismantlers, the junkyard. It's located just a couple of blocks outside the exit gate. And for legal reasons, I just have to say no federal endorsement of sponsors intended. All right, now we talked about the inspiration, the tools, just jumping in and making something. Well, that's what I did. And what I came up with was this. This was my idea of a flying saucer. It's a couple of disposable plastic plates glued together, and there's I don't know, some kind of food container glued to the bottom, and some bits and pieces on top, and this thing, which was going to be a fancy propulsion unit. Well, it broke right as I was making it. And the more I looked at this, the more I thought, you know, I think I can do better. This has no aesthetics whatsoever. So this is going to go into the recycle bin, but no harm done because it was just recyclable junk anyway. So let's put that aside. My second attempt, I think, turned out a lot better. I gave up on the flying saucer theme and I came up with this. Now, I'm just going to call this a Mars orbiter. It could have been a lunar orbiter, it could have been an interstellar spaceship, but I think it looks more like a Mars orbiter. So, what do we have here? Well, we've got the docking cone here, we've got the crew quarter here, we've got the life support section here. This is the antenna, of course, to stay in touch with good old Mother Earth. We've got fuel cells on the end of the boom here, and these little things are radiators to radiate out any extra heat. And this is this has to do with the fuel tank, and this is the rocket nozzle. And yeah, that's it. Except this is number 7, which kind of implies that there are at least 6 others and maybe more. So it was probably mass produced. So the Mars orbiter. Now, something I didn't spend any time doing was all spaceships need a name. Maybe I'll call this the Aurora. I don't know. I'll have to think some more about that. So, in reality, what do we have here? Well, let's look at this again. So here we've just got a metal disc, and this section here, the crew's quarters, is a food container, a snap top, as you can probably tell from these things. And then the fuselage, the main part of this spaceship, are 2 mouthwash bottles, 2 identical ones, joined mouth to mouth, so to speak. And I was afraid that they might be a little wobbly in the middle, so I took some bamboo stakes and glued them together, and they were just the right size to fit inside the mouths of the 2 jars, the bottles. And so I glued those together, leaving room for this aluminum dowel to go through the middle there. And I found out the hard way that aluminum bends really easily, so I had to straighten this thing many times through the build. Let's see, heading back to the back end of the spaceship, this section right here is a sauce dip container, and this rocket nozzle is actually the lid to one of the mouthwash bottles. This right here, this fuel cell, is actually a gum container with a pop top, and this right here is just a plastic jar that I glued back onto its lid, and then of course some metal discs on the end. And and these radiators here, that's just the flimsy plastic that you find in I think these were from a tomato package. So these are the things that just kind of give the package a little stiffness, although they're stiff. So this is what we have. Even though I've gone to great lengths to try to make this sturdy, it's very fragile and it will come apart. So as I said in the first segment, you need to take a lot of photos of your spacecraft, and if you have a way to put in the background some kind of starscape or a planet in the background or something, do that. If you don't have the wherewithal to do that, I recommend photographing this against a neutral background so that you can remove the background later. So that's it. So I hope that I've inspired people to get out and make their own spacecraft. It's a lot of fun. Don't expect to get it all done in one evening. In fact, it's better to space this out a little bit because you might get more inspirations as you go along. So I want to thank you for watching, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of Mildencon. And I'll say again a shout out for the sponsor, which is Vecro Auto Dismantlers near Mildenhall. And again, it's been fun working on this with you, and I'd love to see your results as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.